However, there are concerns that the Civil Aviation Bill does not sufficiently address the environmental impacts associated with air travel. Without clear guidelines on reducing carbon emissions or promoting sustainable practices within the aviation operations, Zimbabwe may fall behind other nations striving for greener aviation solutions. Lastly, the bill will pose some implementation challenges. There are apprehensions, Madam Speaker, ma'am, regarding the practical implementation of provisions outlined in the Civil Aviation Bill. Given Zimbabwe's existing infrastructure challenges and resource constraints, there is a huge worry about whether adequate measures will be taken to enforce compliance with new regulations effectively. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, ma'am, while the Civil Aviation Bill aims to modernize and enhance Zimbabwe's civil aviation framework, it faces several significant challenges related to regulatory clarity, safety standards, alignment with international norms and standards, financial implications for stakeholder engagement processes, environmental considerations, and the practical implementation capabilities. So I submit, Mr. President.
To thank the honourable members for the debate, where a number of issues were raised pertaining the fees and penalties being proposed, the powers of the Director General, stakeholder consultation, amongst other issues. I would like to correct where I said earlier that the last audit was done in 2019. It was actually done in 2023. And we did very well in that audit. Coming to the issue of consultations around the bill, this is highly technical, and I do believe that the committee reached out to many stakeholders in the aviation industry, and they gave their input, as is evident in the debate we are getting today, that these issues were raised by the stakeholders. So I feel that because of all these issues coming out, it's an indication that stakeholders were definitely consulted. Coming to the penalties on clause 24, this came as an audit finding from ICAO, where it was said that this needs to be sorted out as an issue where deterrent fines are put in place. And I believe these will be done as a schedule which can be amended from time to time depending on the environment and the need. But let's also remember that safety is of priority. And if we do not have deterrent fines, we might have airlines cutting corners, resulting in safety breaches. And when you have an accident in the air, in most cases it's 100% fatality, unlike accidents that happen on the ground. So there is need. And currently Zimbabwe, I think, has got a very good safety record within the continent, even globally, and would like to maintain that. Therefore, penalties being prescribed are there as a deterrent. And if airlines comply with the safety regulations, the penalties themselves won't apply. So I think it's really good for our safety to have deterrent fines in place. The issue of the Director General, I've taken on board, noted the submissions made here, that it should not be the Director General who's allowed to legislate, as it were, but whatever is done should be done in consultation with the Minister and with consultation with His Excellency the President. So that I've taken on board. And I would like to commend Honorable Murambedzi, where you talk about having a balance between our safety, our fairness, and that the legislation does need to be refined. We have taken that on board so that Zimbabwean, our aviation image can be preserved as it is currently. We have a very good safety record within the region and the continent. So my responses are, we have taken note of the submissions, and I would like to therefore move for a second reading of the bill.
Civil Aviation Amendment Bill HB 4 2023 be now read a second time. Those who have that opinion will say aye. Though the question is accurately affirmed and the clerk will read the bill a second time.
Civil Aviation Amendment Bill.
Next Tuesday, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The clerk will read the first order of the day.
Use the gazetted bill because that's what members should have. I thought it was circulated.
the situation that we have does not allow us, Madam Chair, to allocate such a huge amount of more than $10 billion. And I say this, Madam Chair, based on the fact that if you look on this budget, we are budgeting for a deficit of around $200 million. But more fundamentally, our domestic debt is in foreign currency. Most of it, 97% of our debt is in foreign currency, 97%. To me, I think what we need to do is to work out a mechanism of making sure that we reduce the allocation that we actually giving to Vote 1. I note from the Blue Book, Madam Chair, that we have got more than 497 of people who are deputy directors and above. 497 under the OPC. Deputy directors and above. We are not talking about the foot soldiers. We are talking of the seniors, 497. And in my view, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask the Honorable Minister, this Vote 1 has been, Madam Chair, for the past 4 years. In spite of the amount that we allocate, they've actually been shooting the budget in terms of the disbursement matrix. They've actually been getting, like for instance, we know last year, their budget, their revised budget, the initial budget shoot up by more than 400%, but then if you see the revised budget, it shoot up by 1.62, about 62%. In terms of the disbursement, because it's actually a favored Vote 1. But my thinking, Honorable Minister, I think in this case, given where we are, we need to live within our budget. And where can we start to demonstrate that? We need to start to demonstrate from Vote 1, so that at least when we go to the other votes, it becomes prudent. My view is that we cannot continue as a country to increase debt, which has now become an albatross on the neck of each and every Zimbabwean. So to that extent, Madam Chair, I'm proposing that we reduce this vote by 1 billion. I thank you.
I thank Honorable Mshoriwa for the contribution, but also thank him for highlighting the need to manage our debts, to live within our means, and that we should really care about making sure that we manage our expenses. I agree with him on that. But in terms of what is demanded by this office, there's a lot that is demanded in terms of expenditure. This is the office that also supervises the entirety of government programs and activities. So it does deserve such a budget. And he said it himself that in the past, what has happened that this office has actually ended up overspending. That also points to the fact that perhaps they needed more resources. And then we then dip into the unallocated reserves to support this office because it would have overspent its budget. So that's all the more reason why we should give it adequate budget. So I still feel that the current proposal allocation is the right level and we should proceed with it. I thank you.
Thank you. Any objection? 753,361,000. Is there any debate?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
I recognize you, Honorable Mateo.
We start with the Constituency Development Fund. The Constituency Development Fund has been allocated 270 million ZiG. If you break this down, it comes to, divided by 210, it comes to 1.28 million, which is in the current rate, circa 50,000. Now, this House has set, in this August House, in the last 3 budgets, and allocated the same amount, 50,000 US, to the Constituency Development Fund. But that money last came now almost 3 years ago, in 2022. That was the last time any MP received the Constituency Development Fund. Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I move that for the year 2025, that be doubled to 100,000 to compensate for the year 2023, and hopefully we'll get the CDF this year as promised by the minister, that before the end of the year, members should get their CDF. Now, I move that we now move to 100,000 to compensate. And if you also listened at the, and I was lucky to go around the country listening to, during the budget consultation, most of the citizens, they said that the CDF is something that we actually see, because it's happening in every locality. It's happening in every constituency. So therefore, it's easy for us, even when we talk about leaving no place behind. The CDF is that money that reaches to every single corner of this country. Hence, it should be increased anyway, despite not us having it in 2023. 50,000 is no longer enough, and we know that history is a good teacher. For the last couple of years, whenever we got the CDF, it was actually less than $20,000. So I move, Madam Speaker, that number one, CDF be put rightfully at 100,000 equivalent, which is, if I calculate from my head, 540 million ZiG, which should be appropriated to this Constituency Development Fund. That's number one. Number two, Madam Speaker, it's very shameful that members of Parliament sometimes get kicked out of hotels, sometimes don't have fuel to go to their various constituencies. Madam Speaker, we want this to change. Parliament, and let me remind the Minister that Parliament is one of the three arms of state. So when you look at all the ministries, they are and all the agencies, they are representing the executive. And Parliament is representing the legislature and the judiciary and so forth in terms of the courts. So we are our own, and our job is to supervise the executive and to ensure that the Constitution is adhered to. Therefore, Parliament should actually be given more money than the 1.7 billion that has been allocated. So Parliament needs to be given more money to be able to carry out its oversight role. Then the other thing, Madam Speaker, as well, I'm not seeing here in terms of the, something again we have always budgeted for in this budget was our offices. The offices, our constituent offices for honorable members of Parliament, which also include a member of staff in that constituency. I cannot see that in this budget, and I think that now needs to be done. For several years we have been putting, I remember I came to this Parliament in 2018. Since 2018 we always put this in the budget, but nothing ever comes out of it. We never get a single, no one gets their constituent office paid for by Parliament, and that needs to change. For example, I pay almost $700 for my constituent office every month, and with no support from Parliament, but yet it's the work of Parliament that we are actually doing in those constituencies. So, Madam Chair, that needs to change. We need money to be appropriated to our offices. Then I will leave others to come in. Then I will also talk about the chairpersons of committees. So the chairpersons of committees are all in agreement that every week, Madam Chair, we are always on the road. Every week we are on the road. And if you look at our mileage now for the vehicles that we were given, mine is now 40,000 kilometers, because every week we are traveling as chairpersons. So we are asking in this budget of 2025 that we be allocated a low-cost vehicle, a second vehicle, to enable us to carry out our mandate as stipulated in the standing orders. I so thank you.
Tools of work by the honorable members. You would understand that honorable members, with regards to the soft copies in terms of details of the bills, the reports and all that. Members are getting all these through their phones. And it's been a long time now. Members have not been allocated their tools of trade to use for the work that they do in Parliament. So I'm imploring the Honourable Minister to address that by enhancing, adding more money to the budget allocated to Parliament. Then as well on that one, looking at our Parliament, our parliamentary staff, you would note that our parliamentary staff, like yesterday, we had all the business that we do up to around +2 and all that. And members will have to go all the way to their different homes and all that during the night. But there is need to look much into their welfare. Take for instance, you would find that our workers here at Parliament, when they go for lunch, they would go by these compounds just around the Parliament building, where they get these sets for 50 cents and $1. So there is need for the Honourable Minister to address the welfare of the workers at Parliament, for them to have access to food, which must be subsidized by Parliament. And when I mean subsidized, I mean to be subsidized for what reason? For the reason that their enumeration is so low. So that virtue of their having lunch, which would have been subsidized by Parliament, it would help them to go a long way in keeping savings of the little that they are getting from Parliament. So I implore the Honourable Minister to invest with the administration of Parliament to make sure that we put an up-to-date restaurant which will manage the members of the workers who are at Parliament for their welfare to be catered for, so that they would have access to lunch, which is very affordable, and to have access to dinner, which is affordable. It's really a sorry state, Honourable Minister, and I think it's time that we need to address this so that our workers are well managed in terms of their welfare of the stomach. Then the last but not least, I need on the budget for Parliament. If Parliament can as well look at, you would find that the northern wing across the bridge where we have the offices, most of our workers, they are working in those offices and they are being exposed to the sun from morning up to sunset. Their rooms are very hot because they don't have curtains along the windows. And there is need for the Honourable Minister to look into this, to allocate enough budget with regards to the parliamentary vote. I thank you, Honourable. Thank you.
We want to suggest some adjustment to the budget allocated to Parliament, especially the point that was raised by Honourable Mtseyami about the staff of Parliament. Honourable Minister, staff of Parliament has left, many of them have left Parliament to seek many jobs in greener pastures like the UK, Australia, because of the salaries that they are getting. So this is compromising the work of Parliament, and we feel that there has to be some kind of improvement in the conditions of service for staff of Parliament. Then there is also the provision of members of Parliament to get low-cost accommodation, or at least some loans to build on their allocated stands. We think that if that can be accommodated in the 2025 budget. There's also need to cater for a backlog. There are a number of honourable members of Parliament who have left Parliament, and they are still to get their stands for the 9th Parliament, 8th Parliament, some of them. And we think that needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. There's an issue that has been raised also by Honourable Mateo about high mileages accumulated by some members of Parliament. And we think that we need to actually come with a provision to ensure that they get a special provision to ensure that they do not lose their vehicles at the end of the term. I thank you, Honourable Minister and Honourable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable.
The honorable members for their contributions.
Order. We'll do another round.
I've taken note of the comments from Honorable Mateo, Honorable Mtsame, Honorable Mutodi regarding the need to support our members of Parliament for the work that they do, but also to support the staff who are supporting the work of this august House. I therefore propose that we increase the budget for Parliament by 500 million ZiG. I thank you.
Debate, we are aware that you had increased already by 500 million. That's not what we are talking about. We want you to increase more because, as you can see, the 1.7 billion is far away inadequate. Just to emphasize the issue that members of Parliament were talking about, do you know these workers that are serving you up to 2 a.m., most of them are getting 2,000 ZiG, money which is not even sufficient to have you get 2 times of haircut. I remember you, the other time you said where you cut your hair is $30. If you convert that 2,000 that we are paying, they will not be able to cut 2 times per month. And so we, as Parliament, atigone kuti tiuye pano vana vachitambira mari yekuti kana nesu tikaitaura panapa zvinotonyadzisa kuti sumuke tichitaura mari dzakadai. So as Parliament, we are the ones who appropriate money. We want, we are proposing that you need to add a further 1 billion on top of the 500 million that you have to ensure that the staff is adequately covered. Do you know that we are unable to be assisted in terms of research? They are overwhelmed, they are underpaid, and most of the time, if you can work Rema committees, are risk kufamba, because today you have a committee clerk in a month's time, and end up in UK or elsewhere. So every time they are retraining committee clerks and so forth, because of the issue remuneration. So we really want to take that serious because it's affecting the work that Parliament is doing. Then for you to cater for the housing allowances for MPs, just like the same way that you catered for our colleagues that were in the 9th Parliament. This is now the 10th Parliament. You need at least $800 million. And you had proposed just $500 million. Where are you going to get the money? So we want to make sure that we are proposing that we appropriate sufficient resources, a separate 500 million that goes for housing loans, because we understand that some MPs are due to get stands. So as soon as they get stands, they need to be accorded by housing stand. Then lastly, I don't want to repeat CDF. What is the point of appropriating money which you are not releasing? 2 years, there is no CDF. When we were in Bulawayo, in fact, we started here 3 months ago. You stood up and announced to the whole nation that you had released $50,000 to Parliament. Up to today, there's nothing. When we met you in Bulawayo, we raised this same issue, and you promised us that the CDF was going to be released during that week. It's now over 3 or 4 weeks since we met in Bulawayo. There is no release. Today you are here asking us to appropriate money again and claiming that the money is going to be released this week, because you know that the budget will be finished on Tuesday. And after our experience with the Ministry of Finance is that as soon as the budget is finished, we won't see you again until you bring your midterm financial review. So we want this matter to be released as we are debating the CDF that helps our constituents. We want you to release, because there's 55 constituents that we have been saying for the last month that it's ready, the paperwork is ready. Why are you not releasing that money as we are debating here? Because we can't have a parliament that appropriates, that also even fails to make sure that the minister releases funds. Saka tinomirira vanhu sei tisingagone kumirira ma-constituents, something that directly helps our constituents. So we would want you to look into that, Honorable Minister. Then lastly, we need Nyaema office yanga ichitaurwa. Vanhu vese vari kuoperate from their car boots, ndo mune mapepa ekuya kunoku and so forth. Even committee work, there is no adequate support for MPs to do their work. I'll give you an example. In public accounts, I'm sure you know, you are the one who tables these reports. We deal with almost 3 thick volumes like this. And for the whole of last session, we have been forcing our MPs to follow through their own phones. This parliament has failed to provide even a basic thing like a computer. How do you oversight a whole government when a book matatu per phone? And some members don't even have smartphones. And even basic things like printing facilities, you can't even print just an A4 paper here in this parliament. Always there's no cartridge and so forth. So you really need to take your time with your officials and really adequately fund the parliament. Even things like sports. During the 10th parliament, this support around sports was better. This year, no support at all. I think we have had just maybe 2 or so sports activities. So those are my submissions, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Ndangwa Honorable Wendo achitidaiwa waisira imwe 1 billion pamusoro ndaitofunga dai yanga yaenda 1.5 billion. Minister, patakanzenda inotora ma-quotations ACDF, takanzenda inotora ma-quotations muchishandisa 100,000. Saka izvezvi takudzokera kumba tine 50,000. Kumba uko kuti titakwedza ma-member of problems, not ma-member of parliament. Tatoo ma-member of problems, because mangwana tuyane chichi. Minister, mukatarisa ma-MP ari muno, vazhinji vacho vakupfeka mabhachi kumabhero, havachapfeka masutu okuenda kunotenga. Kana makatarisa vashandi veparamendi, mapfekero avakuita zvazvo mumabhero nokuti zvinhu hazvina kumira mushe. Dai pasina rejista ari kushandiswa muromo kuti vanhu vamake kairika. Minista ndaitaura muno maisara musina pavanhu. Nokuti ma-allowance ema-MP haasi kuuya, makuponi haasi kuuya, kuma-constituency ndisu vanhu vari kunoviga vanhu. Ndisu tiri vanamuyamura nherera. Saka zvakasimba zvakadai kuti zveshuwa vanhu vanotambudzika kusvika pakadai pachinhingirika hazviite zvakanaka. Ndoda kutaura minista kana muchigara nemudzimai havanzi kuda kurohwa nguva unopuhwa chikafu nokuti ndiye anokubikira chikafu. Ndakambosenza nemumwe mudhara ainge achibikira mumwe murungu chikafu. Murungu anoshauda panguva yekubika tii. Ndakazoona munhu uya anga akusvipira mukapu inomwana murungu uyo. Saka ndaifunga kuti vanhu muno muparamendi muvabatewo zvakanaka. Makatarisa debate riri muno muparamendi tikakompera kana kuti takaenzanisa neri kuKenya. KuKenya vanotopiwa vanhu vanovabatsira ma-MP kuresearcha. Zvokuti kana uchinzwa debate ichitaura kuKenya unosakuona kuti hazvishuwa vanhu varikuita sei vari kuresearcha. Mota dzakawanda kana dzakabatira moto nemapepa anochengetwa eparamendi anochengetwa motikari inobva yangoparara ipapo. Ma-MP enyu minister ari kutambudzika chaiko zvanoasa kutarisa sokuti hei izvi zvinhu zvakaoma. Saka ndaifunga kuti mupatarisise ipapo minister. Kumamisha uku vanhu vari kupopota nenyaya yeCDF shoma. And tikutoona hangu kuti zveshuwa zvakareka kuda kuti tipwe ma-US tichanyara. Tangonzwa nakomuredi next term hamudzoke nokuti unenge usina kana chinhu wani chokuti ungochiita. Vanakomuredi kupona nemacoupons vanenge vaya munomu. Zveshuwa ndaingofunga kuti aiwa ingidzira henyu mari ipapo minister zvinhu zvinge zvinotinakei maita basa.
following the submission by Honorable Mateo, and where the Honorable Minister responded by an upward revision of 500 million. So the clarity that I'm seeking is whether the 500 million is addressing the issues that have been raised by Honorable Mateo. To say we would want the CDF to go up to 100,000, is it directly responding to that? And then Honorable Mateo also mentioned the issue of vehicles for chairpersons. Is it addressing that? That's the clarity that I wanted.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to bring this issue to the Honorable Minister and to members here. The Honorable Minister was so quick to say that I propose to increase by 500 million. But remember, and I think Honorable members, you need to take note of this. The Honorable Minister can even stand up now and say, I will increase by 1.5 billion. And you do that to simply silence us. Because history, Madam Chair, will tell you this. 2024 budget that we passed, the Honorable Minister up to 3rd September, it only allocated 37% of the Parliament budget. Part of the problem that we have in Parliament is not because we did not have a sufficient budget. It was because the Minister of Finance decided in his wisdom not to allocate, to disburse the money that this House is budgeted for. If you check, there was a point that was raised. We are the legislative arm of government. Just two comparisons. The Office of the President had more than 100% disbursement. The Judiciary Service, they had above 70% disbursement. Parliament got less than 40% disbursement. Now, this is my plea. If we are going to come up with any increase, and I agree with the figure that Honorable Mapiki had raised, and I am in support of all the submissions made by honorable members, that the money needs to be upped so that every member of Parliament, every staff of Parliament feel proud to be working in this institution. But what I need the Honorable Minister to do today is that whatever figure we are going to agree as an allocation to Parliament, can he make a commitment of 100% disbursement? Because we don't want the Honorable Minister to simply say, no, I'll just come there, these guys, I'll go there, tell them I'll increase by 2 billion, knowing in the back of your mind that you're not going to give us the money. We need a commitment, and honorable members, if we leave this vote without the Honorable Minister putting his head on the guillotine to simply say, I am going to commit to disburse the amount, then whatever we are doing may not help. We need commitment on the disbursement matrix. I thank you, Madam Chair.
The honorable members for their comments. That's Honorable Wende, Honorable Chidua, and Honorable Mushoriwa. Madam Chair, as Treasury, we've already been approached, working with the Committee on Standing Rules and Orders, on the issue of catering services for parliamentarians and the parliamentary staff, and we've concurred to this, that going forward, there will be catering services. But also, we've now agreed to an allowance for parliamentary staff to the tune of $20 for lunch and $25 for dinner. Really, that goes directly into the issues that honorable members have raised regarding the welfare of staff. But then on the issue of the budget releases that Honorable Sharia raised, yes, there's a valid issue around budget releases, but I thought that for now we're trying to establish what is the appropriate level of budget for Parliament, given the budget constraints. I thought that's what we're debating, and not budget releases. If I'm being requested to make commitments on 100% budget releases, I cannot make that commitment. I certainly cannot, because that depends on cash flow availability. So what we do is we do budget releases in anticipation of cash flows. Budget releases from the allocated budget. That's a normal budgeting process, and I think that's what we're debating today. But I cannot commit to 100% cash flows. I'm sorry to disappoint Honorable Shore on that one. But I'm happy to increase the budget of Parliament further, given these commitments that we've made to staff for lunch, dinner, and other emoluments. On top of the 500 that I proposed, I think that we should add another 300 million ZiG, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Any objection?
What we are going to propose is that your staff needs to go and rework the appropriations for Parliament and so that you allocate Maria Mutaura to specific things that we have requested. Because as we have said, 800 is not enough. We have not touched on the issue of housing loans. You have simply ignored it. And you have not touched on all the issues, the tools of trade that we have spoken about. You have not addressed. You have chosen to address lunch and dinner. It shows that you are not appreciating the concerns of the members of Parliament. And the Speaker of Parliament is on record every time after we've passed the Parliament. It's a problem when we ask the Speaker. Today, we want to make sure that we pass a budget that adequately allows Parliament to perform its constitutional responsibility. So my suggestion is that can we allow you to consult your staff, rework Tomboenda H3, then to Zoga Parliament, a clear proposal. And in future, I want it for you to know that your ministry has problems in all committees. You don't attend parliamentary work. We are now doubting whether you take Parliament serious. Every committee has problem with the Ministry of Finance. And last year, you even had the audacity, we appropriate money for cars, 80,000. You then go to your office and cancel it and change it into 50,000. So even this budget that we are making, it should not be a ritual. When Parliament appropriate money, so please take Parliament seriously. I propose, members of Parliament, that we allow the ministry and its officials to rework on our budget in light of the submissions that we've done. Thank you very much.
Zvatarwa naHonorable Wende ndiri kuwirirana nazvo. Ndoda kudzokorodza futi figa rataurwapo ishoma. Nyaya yetiri kutaura, vanhu vanoita kuti Parliament ifambe vashandi veParliament. Vashandi veParliament, makomiti clerks edu mazhinji, tine makomiti clerks vakaregedza basa. Nenyaya yekuti mari yavanohora ishoma. Minister, committee clerk wedu panapa anotambira mari ZiG risikasviki 2,000. Anobhadhara ega lunch, dinner, oenda kumba kwake uko. Every day tinaye panapa. Achibva panapa na 2 AM, nezuro akabva na 3. Haana mota yekufamba, uchamirira bhazi rinomusiya kuroto, ozofamba netsoka kuenda mumba make, akagarirwa nebavha. Ndowe tiri kuda kuti awedzerwe mari munhu iyeye. Then tati awedzerwe mari, toda kuti ari kunoku adye lunch, adye dinner, osvika kumba kwake usiku akaguta. Then vana vake vozopihwa mari yaanotambira mwedzi wapera yakakwana. kwete 2000 zigi. Toda kuti vashandi veparliament vasvike malevels evashandi veparliament vedzimwe nyika kuti vaitewo upenyu hwakanaka, vasaramba vachiti tikaita 3 weeks committee clerk mwedzi wechi4 obuda basa. Hapana continuity yekuti zvinhu zvedu zvifambe zvakanaka. Ngatigadzise vashandi veparliament upenyu hwavo hudadise, vafambe nemota dzakanaka, vachienda kumba vachibata nguva. Wedzerai mari yemushandi weparliament 800 million yataurwa apa ishomasa. Nyaya tiri kutaura honorable minister, munhu ari kuchema kuti mvura yatiri panapa tiri kuda kuti timwe 20 liters kuti vanhu vagute mvura. Imi moti okay, ndandamupa 2 liters, ndakuwedzera ndakumupa 3.2 liters. Aiti wedzerai mari, at least ngatiende ku 1.5 billion. Vashandi veparliament vafare, vatambire mari neshwiro kuti vararame. Mashuma.
Budget. I put vote number 3, public service, labor and social welfare, 10,710,480,000. Is there any debate?
Yes.
I